All right, so what I've got here is a basic question for the sine and cosine rule. So I've got 2 previous videos on the sine and cosine rule and just a basic introduction. So if you'd like to check those out, feel free to check that out first. But if you're interested in knowing how to apply those, this is the video for you. So what I've got at the moment is I've got a non-right angle triangle. So that's one of the most important features of the sine and cosine rule, is that it's used only for non-right angle triangles. And I've got a few different bits and pieces here. All right, so the first thing we've got to do is figure out, okay, I've got an unknown x here, so I want to find an unknown angle here. All right, the next thing I'm going to think about is, well, which is better for me? Should I use the sine rule or the cosine rule? So just to remember, for those who weren't here or didn't have a look at the other videos, I've got them here. So this is the sine rule, and then I've also got my cosine rule. All right, so my letters might be slightly different to the previous video depending on whatever. So sometimes the capitalization lowercase, it doesn't really matter too much. So really you can actually use it like this. If I actually get rid of these, I can always just write sine A and B in lowercase. Oops, that's meant to be an A. Depending, as long as you know the variables, that's fine. Okay, so for the sine rule, I said that it's usually best to use the sine rule when you're given a pair of things or an angles and sides are opposite each other. And I said for the cosine rule, you usually need to have at least 3 sides and an unknown angle, or you know 1 angle and you know 2 sides and you need to find an unknown side. So just based on this one, let's see if we can just pair up the sides. So I'm going to say this is A here, A, this is B. All right, so right away we know that we've got a pair. We have C here, but we obviously don't know what C is, and that doesn't matter too much. But the fact is that we've got a pair, and so we can say that sine rule, you're the one for me. Excellent. So I'm going to actually substitute in what I need to know. And remember that for sine, you can only put angles in there. You can't put a side. So let's substitute it right in. So sine A, so my A is x in this case, divided by the side is 8.7 because that's directly opposite it. Is equal to sine 50 divided by 9.5. All right, so let's see if we can rearrange this equation to find x. All right, so I'm going to multiply by 8.7 on both sides just to cancel it out. So sine x is equal to sine 50 divided by 9.5 times by 8.7. And to find x on its own, I've got to find the inverse. So putting that all in inverse there. Excellent. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my calculator. I'm going to type that in, so making sure that it's this inverse of sine. So sine 50, there we go, divided by 9.5 and then timesing it by 8.7. I put that into my calculator, I get 44.55 degrees. All right, I usually double underline my answer and highlight. So if you get slightly different, it might be just maybe a few decimal points off. That is just basically because you probably worked this section out. Oh, that's my highlighter. You probably worked out some of these bits first before putting it in the inverse, and you probably rounded. That's probably the main reason why you might get a slightly different answer. But that's no biggie at all. All right. So this is just a basic question for using the sine rule. But yeah, it's really important just for you to know when to use each of the sine rules. And I've got another example coming up. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. Thank you.